Good morning, metalheads of the internet, and welcome to a new episode of the Metal Meltdown. Just a quick reminder that we will be playing Resident Evil Village live this coming Friday, May 7th at 3 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. A lot of people are probably going to be streaming this game that same night. It is, after all, one of the most anticipated video games of the year. But my stream is the one you're going to want to tune into. Plain and fucking simple, I fucking promise ya. And don't forget as well, by popular demand, we will return to the apparently legendary Dream Daddy. But first, you've got to help bump this channel up to 4,000 subscribers. So get to work, tell all your friends about the Metal Meltdown, and subscribe if you haven't already. When we talk about modern thrash metal, when we talk about bands that have reinvigorated and repopularized the genre within the last 10 to 15 years, a lot of names come to mind. Municipal Waste, Toxic Holocaust, Warbringer, Power Trip, Revocation, Vector, arguably King Gizzard and the Lizard Wizard, may I add, considering the phenomenal success and critical acclaim of Infest the Rat's Nest in 2019. But one name that is consistently and weirdly left out of the conversation is Evile. An English thrash metal crew whose first few records more or less paved the way for the entire thrash metal resurgence of the 2010s, introducing a new generation of young, pissed-off teenagers to the glory days of authentic, old-school thrash metal. I even remember being in my second semester of high school, so roughly January, February 2010, give or take, and being introduced to a guy named Jonathan Snow. And I remember I would go to his house like every other fucking weekend, and we would just play video games and eat candy and pizza and all kinds of other fucking nasty, horrible junk food, and we would listen to specifically Evile on repeat. I mean, eventually, sure, Toxic Holocaust, Metallica, Slayer, a lot of other thrash bands that I was into at the time, but Evile came first, and I think it's safe to say in retrospect that my love of thrash metal very much does stem from my love of Evile. But Robert, if this band is so important and so good, why haven't we been talking about them? Great question, and the answer's actually very fucking simple. These guys haven't done anything in a long time, and as a result, we've all just kind of forgotten about them. See, their last studio album, Skull, was released back in 2013, and as far as I can tell, they haven't really done a whole lot of touring in the nearly 8-year time span between that album and this new one, Hell Unleashed. And I won't lie to you guys, as a result of all of this, I initially couldn't help but think to myself, do Evile still have what it takes to deliver the thrash metal goods in 2021? Can they hang with the young guns like Enforced and Cryptosis and Paranorm, or are they destined to be forgotten forever? And unfortunately, even after listening to this album multiple times, I don't know if I have a definitive answer to either of those questions. Ultimately, only time will tell if Evile can reclaim their thrash metal throne. But here's what I do know for sure, ladies and gentlemen. If you're just looking for some really stubborn, really in-your-face, really razor-sharp thrash metal with modern production value and old-school spirit, then you really can't go wrong with Hell Unleashed. From start to finish, this album is just balls-to-the-wall mosh monkey madness, filled with crazy riffs, crazy guitar solos, crazy breakdowns, and all the hellish and chaotic energy that one could possibly want from even the most mediocre thrash record. Now, I'm sure that more cynical and pretentious music listeners would argue that the album is generic, derivative, predictable, cookie-cutter, meat and potatoes, blah 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 blah, and I suppose, objectively, you're not wrong, per se. You're missing the point, but you're not wrong. Me personally, I look at thrash metal the same way I look at junk food. I know it's not good for me. I know that there's better stuff out there, but every once in a while, a good, fat, juicy, delicious fucking cheeseburger with bacon and cheese and fucking Cajun mayo and all kinds of other shit, it just hits the fucking spot. And Hell Unleashed, it hits the fucking spot. Plain and goddamn simple. Opening track Paralyzed doesn't waste any goddamn time whatsoever, unleashing a barrage of particularly savage thrash metal guitar wankery at almost machine gun speed. There are lots of nasty razor sharp riffs, the musicianship is tight as fuck, the production is very clean and mean and lean, there is no fat whatsoever. By the end of this track, the direction of the album becomes so transparently clear that if you couldn't see it, you might just be fucking blind. Or, in this case, deaf. Which isn't to say that at any point the album gets especially repetitive, because I certainly don't think it does. But it's also not an especially progressive album. You know, there are no major deviations to be found whatsoever, and the few subtle deviations there are ultimately ones that themselves are pretty common within thrash metal. Take, for instance, the very hellish and Slayer-esque introduction to the album's title track, Hell Unleashed, or the very evocative Metallica-esque guitar progressions of Incarceration, or even the Anthraxian tongue-in-cheek comedy horror of tracks like Zombie Apocalypse and The Thing 1982. I think the closest thing to anything really different being introduced on this album would be through the track Gore, which features backing vocals from the boomer comedy metal cringe overlord himself, Brian Posehn. And while the memory of Grandpa Metal may still indeed haunt me for many nights to come, I'll happily give credit where it's due. Even he cannot actively derail the insane thrash metal roller coaster that is Gore. Honestly, I don't really have much more to say about this album. I mean, it's thrash metal. What more do you want me to say at this point? I guess if I really wanted to nitpick, I could say that the vocals are a little dry, a little one-dimensional, but, you know, old Drake is still able to sell a majority of what's on this thing, so, you know, fuck it. I'll give this a 3.5 out of 5. Quite frankly, there are few bands out there that can perform this style with the authenticity and the energy that Evile can still apparently bring to the table. And honestly, these guys do it so well that I don't really care if they never change their sound whatsoever. In fact, they're one of the few bands where I honestly kind of hope they never change. That probably sounds fucking weird coming out of me, and maybe it's the nostalgia talking, but even so, it's the goddamn truth. So pull that fucking stick out of your ass, shut the fuck up, order that fucking cheeseburger, and enjoy every delicious, stupid, greasy moment of it. Enjoy every drop of sauce that flows down the side of the bun and down your arm. So 3.5 out of 5, no, it's not groundbreaking, but fuck it. It doesn't need to be, and I don't want it to be either. And that is it for the Metal Meltdown. I'm not an expert, nor do I claim to be, so what do you think? Do you like this album? Do you not like this album? And what do you want to hear from me next? And thank you for watching. Make sure you press subscribe so you get updates on the Metal Meltdown e-fucking immediately. And as always, you have yourself a fantastic fucking day.